Well, Dolphins fans, I know it's super late on the East Coast. It's late here in Alaska. It's almost 10 o'clock here, but I realize it's 2 a.m. on the East Coast, so I'm not expecting many people to be here. But watch it when you get a chance. It's not going to be a long live stream. I made a video this afternoon when I got home from work, and it was titled, Huddle Up Dolphins Fans, We Need to Have a Talk. Go watch that video first if you haven't watched it already, and then listen to this. That was recorded and uploaded about 7 minutes before the news came out with this Tyreek Hill stuff. The domestic disturbance. Can't call it domestic abuse because nobody was arrested or charged with anything, so it falls under the category and the purview of domestic disturbance. I'm not going to get into the whole ins and outs of all of that. It's not really my place to delve into the personal life, at least that kind of stuff. Obviously, it's a sensitive subject, and there's all kinds of rumors going around about what's happening and what's being done about it, and I'm not going to venture any guesses into that. Beyond the fact that, it's pretty obvious that it's a recurring issue for Mr. Tyreek Hill, and it all seems to revolve around the same thing, and it's an anger issue, an anger management. He acts off the cuff and does these things and might not mean to in the moment, but he does. Anyway, I made this video earlier, and my points still stand. I didn't say anything incorrect. But the purpose of this little live stream is to explain that it changes a little bit of it. And it changes it in the fact that Tyreek Hill is putting the Miami Dolphins in a very hard spot. You want to talk about that phrase, in between a rock and a hard place. That's what this is for Miami. It makes no financial sense whatsoever to cut him or trade him this year, like I said in that video. However, he's not giving them the chance to do anything else. I mentioned in the previous video that I made that, this is assuming that Tyreek stays clean and clear of issues and avoids the circus, that he could have a good season this year. And I'll be honest, I thought that he would be able to do it. Made it about 7 minutes after I made that video. Good grief. Domestic violence is no joke. And like I said, there was no physical violence or anything like that, according to the police report. So I'm not jumping into all of that. I'll leave that for other YouTubers to venture their guesses and cover that. That's not something I'm willing to cover or would want to anyway. It's disturbing to me personally. It may not show on here, but I've dealt with anger management, a large portion of my life, and only the last, 5 to 10 years, I've really started to get a handle on it better. And it's improved nearly every aspect of my life. I still get frustrated, but it's also the reason that I'm slightly more optimistic about things and I keep my head level with stuff like this, is because if I don't, it's a spiral. It's a really quick way to slide back. And I do feel for Tyreek in that respect, because nobody wants to do these things and act like this and constantly have these issues. Now, the internet trolling and all that's beside the point. That's aside from this. That's not something that I'm referring to. I'm talking about the disturbances, the involvement with the boat captain a couple years ago during the off season. The domestic disturbances that have happened here and in Kansas City before we had him on our team. it's a hard thing to break. It's a hard cycle to break. So I do feel for him in that. I would just think that, with the availability he has money wise and his popularity, that I would think that he would be able to find some help with this. So that's a little disturbing to know that. I don't know if he's tried or not. That's like, once again, that's outside of my purview. But I would hope that he would have had some success with dealing with it in some way, shape, or form, and maybe he has. I don't know. But I know this makes things difficult because at some point the Dolphins are going to say, money be damned. We've got to get rid of him. We've got to let him go. And that's going to result in a few things. It's going to hurt us financially. We're not going to get the return that everybody wants to get with him. I don't think that, especially with this happening again, I don't think that we're going to get anything more than maybe a 6th or a 7th round pick for him if we trade him. Now, obviously, if we're going to try to save any money, we're going to have to do this after June 1st. Which means we're going to have to go through the draft and everything else before we cut him. And that's kind of weak too. That's not good because that's going to put us in another spot where we're going to need a player. So it's no bueno. Not good for Miami. And not a good situation for Tyreek Hill and his wife and his kids and everything else. It's not a good situation. Not sure how to go through this. Not sure what to think. Like I said, all the points that I made in the previous video still stand. And we still could hang on to Tyreek Hill this year and tough through it. But I can tell you a couple things. I think this means, that you can kiss the chances of Tyreek Hill being captain again goodbye. I don't know what this is going to do for him in our locker room. A lot of these guys on the team have wives and kids. And a domestic disturbance usually requires, some kind of extenuating or extraneous behavior. Something to cause it, to bring it about. And usually it's more than one person that causes it, or a stressful situation. And having a new baby in the house, that can cause some stress. Having your mother-in-law in the house, that can cause some stress. It can. Whether you like the mother-in-law or not, it can still cause stress. A lot of things can cause stress, but there's ultimately no reason to resort to domestic disturbances, domestic abuse, domestic violence, any of those things. And I'm not saying that violence or abuse happened here in this situation, because no one was arrested and no one was charged with anything. Now, if it was violence or abuse, someone would have to be charged. Police are instructed to, if there is evidence of abuse or violence in the home, but the police have to arrest one person. They have to. It's procedural. In almost every police department across the nation, that's a procedure that has to be abided by because it protects both parties involved. And it was made a light misdemeanor, especially for a first offense, because of that. That way it can be charged and it doesn't, wreck someone's life to start. However, once that becomes multiple times and repeat offenses, then that changes. But digressing from my point, I suppose I'm disappointed, and I'm worried about our team. It changes attitude. It changes the attitude, and I talk a lot about mindset, attitude, mentality, and having a player go through this and be doing this on the team when we're trying to change our attitude and our identity on this team. We're trying to change that right now. I explained how in previous videos. We're through acquiring certain types of players, through getting younger, through the coaches trying different things. It's an effort. It's a movement, and This sets us back. So I don't know how else to put it, but there's turmoil. And the Dolphins statement, of course, acknowledged it and said they've communicated with the NFL and with Tyreek Hill and said they're not gonna speak on it any farther. And that's a pretty standard reply as far as a sports team goes for one of their players being involved in something like this. But at the same time, the Miami Dolphins, they've got to be thinking, man, we have to do this a lot. This is the fourth time that we've had to do this. And the other team, the Kansas City Chiefs, have had to do it as well. As far as trading him, it could make more sense after June 1st. However, we're not going to get anything for him. We're not. Nothing worthwhile. And it's going to cost us money, just, a little bit less after June 1st. It's a mess with the money. Extending him last year sure doesn't look very good right now, because if we hadn't have done that, we could have just sent him on his way. There would be no guaranteed money that we have to pay him. If this happened, we could have just been like, okay, you're done. See you later. But we extended him last year, so that changes everything. Now, if we do get rid of him, that's going to affect a lot of things. Number one, we're going to have to extend Tua pretty much if we want to have money to fill this team in. If we end up trading him, because we're going to have to pay some money. Post June 1st even. I think it'll wind up being $15 million or $16 million this year, and then another $15 or $14 million next year is what we'll have to pay to offload him in a trade after June 1st. So it's still going to be $30-something million total. So if we have to cover that, we're going to have some more money, a good amount, to fill in these gaps. So what I think this is going to end up meaning, if we trade Tyreek Hill, I think that's effectively a give up on the season. I think that's going to be a push for 2025. And I think they're going to just write it out with whatever they can fill the spots with and call it good. And low expectations, obviously. And if that's the case, I think they'll cover his entire guaranteed sum this year so that they don't have to do anything with it next year. So they probably, if they decide they want to trade him, it'll be post June 1st, and they'll cover his entire guaranteed sum this year, which will be $30-something million. And then they will be clean and clear for 2026. And that's when they'll start, really getting into this soft rebuild. This year will be a push. Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. That's the option. I see it going two ways. The way I just mentioned, the post June 1st trade, where we're not going to get anything back for him, and we're going to have to pay around $30 million to do it. Or we keep him on the team for one more year still, and hope to goodness that he just chills out for the remainder of his time here, for his last year. At which point we can trade him, or he can retire. Guaranteed money will be over after this year. So, I apologize for the lack of intensity. I get up in the morning at 4 a.m. to go to work, and it's 10 p.m. right now, so I'm feeling a little tired. But I wanted to get on here and clarify. I wanted to make sure also that people don't think that I'm defending Tyreek Hill in this situation of domestic disturbances, and I'm not. I'm just thinking from a team standpoint. Before I knew about this, I was thinking that it made absolutely no sense to trade him. We have to keep him this year, is what I was thinking. And now I can see a reason why we would want to. Because this pretty much feels like it could be the last straw for the Dolphins front office and for the team. And if that's the case, I'm forced to understand that. I do. But at the same time, it doesn't change what I said about the financial part and the recuperation for getting rid of him, for trading him, it's not going to be there, and the money is going to be owed. So that pretty much means that if we want to try for this year, and they still want to make a solid push for a playoff berth and for a division title, if that's what they were thinking, whatever they were thinking. But there's pretty much two trains of thoughts to the year. It's either they were going soft rebuild with low expectations, or they were trying something different in hopes that they could make this stick and make it work. But with this, the only way to try to make it stick and have playoff hopes, aspirations, and a playoff push, or a division title, or however they want to do, the only way to make that work would be to extend Tua now, which is something that I did not want to do because I wanted to see how he played this year. And I really didn't want to push any money down the road this season. I wanted to roll it out and see how it went. So what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to venture guesses. I'm not going to extrapolate what I think happened in the house of Tyreek Hill and his wife. I'm not going to do any of that. I'm not going to try to make the whole situation seem worse than it is for clicks. That's not me. If you want clickbait, go elsewhere. I'm just going to lay it out flat. That's what we're dealing with. Things could be much better. This is not a good situation to be in. As Dolphins fans, we should be disappointed. We should expect more, and we should be given more from players on this team. Getting paid millions of dollars to play a sport. Players should be able to behave better than what we're seeing here. And now, Miami has a chance to, or an opportunity, I suppose, in a weird way, to show that that's not what they're about. And I have a feeling that they very well might trade him away. The question is are they going to be able to find somebody who would take this responsibility on, knowing what just happened? I don't know. I don't know if they're going to be able to find somebody to trade with. I guarantee you, if it's before the draft, we're not going to get anything but a 6th or a 5th, or a 6th or a 7th, maybe a 5th. But I doubt it. I know that we would have gotten more if he would have played this year and kept it clean with the off-season or the off-field stuff. Definitely. What a mess. That's where I'm at. Hopefully, all of you can keep a level head with this, and not just start screaming and crying for blood, and not venturing into what happened in the home of Tyreek Hill. It's not our place. So, other than to generalize about the situation and not guess. In general, it's not something that you want for a player on your team. It's not something you want for a woman and a child in a house with her husband. This isn't something that you want. So, I can tell you that I'm going to be praying for Tyreek Hill's wife and his mother-in-law and his child, that they can find peace in this, however that ends up being. I'm going to be praying for Tyreek Hill that he can find some help and some peace with his anger issues and his spontaneity. That he can find some way to deal with this. He's going to have to figure out how to cope with his anger and this off-the-cuff mentality. So I'm praying for him that he can find that. We all deserve peace. So Dolphins fans, I am sorry that this is happening to you, and you don't deserve it. We all, as fans of this storied franchise, deserve better than this. Every single one of you deserve better than this as a fan. So, good grief. Unreal. As soon as I make that video, not even 10 minutes after all this comes out. I had some things to take care of, so for a few hours, but the whole time I'm sitting there like, man, I'm going to have to deal with this. Unreal. It's a test to be a true fan and to embrace the fandom, the ups and the downs, the good and the bad. Here we are, going through a little adversity again for the 26th year in a row. With that, I'm going to get off. I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to hug my wife and my daughter. And I'm going to thank the Lord for helping me with my issues. Stay hopeful, Dolphins fans, if you can.